Two guys in the dark.
I was the one at fault here. I was in nursing school when I got an email one morning about a life insurance policy that was written out in my name. I was confused at first, because I was a relatively healthy 26-year-old woman, but it didn't take long to figure out that my wife at the time did it. Besides, my wife and myself, she was the only other person to know my social security number and all the necessary information that was needed. She was the reason that I went to nursing school, constantly worked every double or every shift available at work. She was horribly abusive in every way imaginable. I was too afraid to leave her or call the police about it. To give you more of a perspective of the kind of person that she was, she would tell me every single day to go out into the woods and shoot myself. She would make me stand against a tree while she held a revolver against my forehead and played Russian roulette. She would give me a $20 a month allowance when I was the one making all of the money. And when I tried to get more for a gift or something, she'd maybe give me $1 more. She became so controlling to the point of tracking the mileage in my car to make sure that I wasn't going anywhere besides work and home. She would screen all my calls, so in order for me to call my family, I had to make up an excuse to leave the ranch, talk to them in secret, with specific instructions not to call me back. I would call them, and then delete all the call histories. This list is definitely not all that she put me through during our 4 years of marriage, but that's another story for another time. It'll be 6 years later this month from when I left her. I'm still not healed, and sadly I will never be fully at peace until she is gone and out of this world. Until then, I have to focus on myself and deal with the nightmares and night terrors as often as they come. I will be honest, I was the one that was in the wrong in this relationship. I thought that love was about honesty. But we know that the truth does hurt. As we grew more comfortable in our relationship, I stopped trying to take the sting out of it. I talked smack to my girlfriends, my mom, my coworkers, all the time. I would always tell them, "Can you believe that he didn't do this? And why in God's name did he even do that?" Instead of building up his ego, I trampled all over it. I belittled him quite often, saying that his job wasn't important, and dismissing his friends as hangers-on. I berated him for doing things wrong when, in all honesty, he just wasn't doing them my way. At times, I spoke to him like he was a child. I controlled the family finances, and grilled him over every single penny that he spent. And in the bedroom, yep, you guessed it, he was doing that all wrong too, and I wasn't shy about telling him so. As our marriage had crumbled, I found myself constantly looking for faults and mistakes so that I could justify my superiority. By the end, I had zero respect for him, and made sure that he knew it and felt it every single day. Looking back on it now, after the divorce of several years, I do regret what I have done. And if I could turn back time, I would change everything. My wonderful ex-girlfriend had deserted me and my 4-year-old son to run off with a man that was 19 years her senior. He was a retired Army sergeant who happened to run off his wife and the mother of his 4 children with a shotgun. She came to my apartment one day to berate me for filing an alienation of affection lawsuit against her lover. I told her that she was a very mixed-up person, and that if I were the bad guy, she told everyone that I was, she wouldn't have left her son with me, and that she needed to get some help. She ended up leaving. I later met a mutual friend, a woman who told me that she talked to my ex, and said that the visit was intended to lure me into following her, and said that she was setting up an ambush for me. I did not take the bait, however. She ended up marrying this guy. I retained full custody of our child. Things died down a few years back. He had gotten very sick and was put into a nursing home. He died alone, unvisited and unloved. She had sucked him dry financially, just like she had done to me. She didn't even have a funeral for him. Karma is such a bitch. By the way, she tried to recant her giving me the custody of the children, hoping that she would get child support so that she wouldn't have to work. I was a GS 09 in civil service at the time, making decent money. She was asking for half of my salary. When the judge asked her why she wanted to recant the custody agreement, she said she only signed it because I had held a gun on her in the office of the county attorney. The judge called her a liar and ruled in my favor. Imagine someone you love, with all of your heart and soul, would conspire with another man to do you in. If any of you are having a similar experience, make sure you change the beneficiaries on your life insurance policy so a cheating spouse gets nothing, and let them know that the beneficiaries were changed. It might save you from an assassination attempt. It was 2012, I think. I was in high school. I knew this girl from 7th grade, but I never talked to her until 2 years later. In 9th grade, she became my girlfriend, and for the first months, everything seemed just fine. It all began with other girls. I'll call them A, and call T my ex. A happened to have been my crush for many years until I knew T. T was always jealous because she thought that I never could get over A. The time passed, and she was becoming more and more jealous about A, and everyone in general. She started to get crazy mad at me when I went out with my friends. Even stopped talking to me for over a year when in a party I took a photo with my female best friend and uploaded it to my Instagram. In the last months of the relationship, T had told me that she was sure that I loved A, and that she would take a knife to school and kill her. And if she couldn't do that, she would buy a bag of weed, put it in the backpack of A, so that she could tell the principal that A was selling drugs to other students and get her expelled from school. I still remember that night when she said all of this. I knew that I had screwed up when I chose her as a girlfriend. Weeks after that, I told her that I couldn't handle the relationship and that it wouldn't work anymore. Some months after that, I discovered that A liked me, and with the time she became my girlfriend, as she's a very beautiful and kind person. She's not my girlfriend anymore, but at least she's not crazy like my ex. Now T thinks the reason because I left her is because I was secretly in love with A the whole time. However, I find it funny because it was her who predicted the destiny of the relationship and my relation with A. Now, I wasn't the best girlfriend in the whole world. And I know if I would have done things differently, maybe I would be married to the man that I love. We had a couple of kids together, and everybody knows it's easy to love your own children. It takes very little effort, and they adore you no matter what. Relationships are the polar opposite. It's work, and whenever my relationship started to feel like work, I would check out and head to Build-A-Bear Workshop or the Science Museum with the children in tow. I'd often plan these adventures when I knew that my boyfriend couldn't go, and spoil my good time. I told myself that it was okay because he preferred to work anyways, and always seemed grouchy on family outings. I chose most nights to cuddle with them in our bed, blaming him for his late-night bedtimes and snoring for the sleeping arrangements. As a result, we were hardly alone together, and never had any kid-free date nights. Well, maybe once a year on our anniversary, when I felt like actually having one with him. Eventually, he broke it off with me, because he was just sick and tired of all the excuses. At first, I was relieved. Then the guilt had settled in. I tried getting back with him, but he just wouldn't. He wouldn't give me the chance to try to reconcile things. And for that, I will have to live with for the rest of my life. I was with my girlfriend for 5 years and was making plans to propose to her. Then one day, she said that she wanted to take a break to figure things out. That was about 4 years ago. She had got married about 2 years after her break to a coworker who I later found out she was cheating on me with the whole time that we were together. I was devastated at this time, but I think that was all for the best. Also, it is a small world, because the husband that she is with is now cheating on her with somebody that I know. Thank you, karma. I know that I'm the bad one in this relationship, but honestly,
I don't care about it. I was talking to somebody for a couple of weeks, and I decided to meet with them in a public park. I just decided to go for it. Things weren't going very well in my marriage, and I was nostalgic for the good times my ex and I used to have together. Sex in my marriage is fine, but it takes me a little while for an orgasm, and most of the time with my husband, I don't get anywhere close to it. He knows that, and I think that it frustrates him, but I've always been that way. There are some big differences between my husband and my ex. My ex happens to have a type A personality and is pretty high-strung. My husband is more relaxed. He smokes pot and calls himself a dirty hippie. My ex likes to talk dirty in bed, and my husband basically prefers silence. With my ex, there's almost a consistent dialogue. Dirty talk is something that I've always done with other people in the past, so it's really stifling to me to be told, just hush, because you're ruining it. My husband happens to be average in size. Not small, but not big. But my ex is slightly above average. The size really doesn't have something to do with the time required for me to have an orgasm, though. My ex happens to be aggressive in bed. Things like hair pulling, spanking, things like that. That makes a really big difference to me. We make a lot of eye contact with each other, whereas my husband usually has his eyes closed. My husband happens to be skillful in bed, but not as aggressive. I've asked him to be, but he doesn't enjoy doing it, so I don't ask him very often. Sex with my ex is like the sex between Hannah and Adam during the first season of Girls. Sex with my husband feels good, but it doesn't leave me sweaty and breathless. I get the feeling that my husband wants a pillow princess who just lies there during sex and doesn't do much, which is not me at all. My husband can't text me while he's at work, but my ex has a job where he can text me all day, and he often sexts me. My husband works a physical, demanding job, so when he gets home, he's not really in the mood for sex. He only wants to do it on the weekends. So with my ex, it's a confidence booster, and it's not really a love affair, although I do care about him. It's more businesslike. We both want the same thing. For my husband to be able to perform, he has to be in a very specific mood, and also wants me to be in a certain mood. Sometimes I just want to screw, and not worry about what sex means emotionally. Being emotionally connected is an extremely important aspect of sex for my husband, whereas I'm more concerned with physical pleasures. There is a difference between people who's come of age with internet porn, like me and my ex, and people who haven't, like my husband. I definitely think that there's a difference between people who've come of age with it. I feel like it makes us more adventurous. We'll try things, even if it doesn't end up being something that works out for either of us. My husband had tried to watch it together, but he thinks my taste is too extreme. Even though I have chosen something with Sasha Grey that I thought was pretty mainstream. He came of age in the 80s, and it's very apparent in the porn that he chooses. Like women with deep tans and spoofy 80s hair, and more pubic hair than I've ever seen in my life. Anyways, my ex has a girlfriend, and they don't live together, and she doesn't know that he's seeing me. I stalk both of them on Pinterest. I've noticed that he's been posting photos of grooms, and I suspect that they are getting engaged soon. I think that I'd be okay if he got engaged. I can't see myself being in a relationship with him anyways. I don't see him being faithful long term because he's been dating someone else the whole time that we've been seeing each other. Well, neither have you, you stupid bitch. I probably wouldn't have an affair in the first or second year of my marriage, but my resistance to the idea got worn down over time. I really do struggle with the fact that I made this commitment to my husband that's supposed to be for life. No shit. I told my husband at one point because the guilt got to me too much. He forgave me, but I've seen my ex a couple more times without telling my husband. If it did end completely, it might motivate me to work on my own marriage more. It's an easy cop-out. On the other hand, it has made me a little more tolerant in my own marriage. When you get sexually frustrated, it blends over other areas in your life. If I'm not, I can approach other aspects of our relationship in a more compassionate manner. If he does something that annoys me, I can't get mad. I just move on. I'm not the kind of person that you would find on Match.com or Ashley Madison. I have no interest in meeting somebody completely new. That's too much work. I have 3 children. I barely have time to get away as it is. My parents divorced, and it was kind of ugly. My grandmother told me my dad had an affair. To hear that at 7 years old made me look at my father completely different. If my kids had ever found out, I'd be completely devastated. Well, you should be. Right now, things with my ex are open-ended. We see each other if our schedule allows it. If it did end completely, it really would motivate me to work on my own relationship with my husband. I really do think if my husband and I had more time together, that would really help our marriage and our sex life. I don't even really remember the last time that we got out for a real date. I'd just like to get away for 3 or 4 days to have the honeymoon that we never got to have. Look, lady, you're gonna go cheat. Why don't you just divorce your husband and get with somebody else? You're stupid. I hope he finds out. I really don't remember the exact day Colin, which happens to not be his real name, became part of my life. A fleetingly glimpsed neighbor that I'd often nod to. I knew that he was a long-distance truck driver, and I think that he knew who I was. When our paths had crossed, he would seldom meet my gaze. I don't even remember the first time that I heard his name. A familiar voice uttered it, though my wife's. It wasn't by way of introduction, although years later I did wonder how that might have gone. Honey, have you seen that handsome man with the blonde hair, broad shoulders, and light tan who lives at number 18? His name's Colin. But no, rather mundanely she referred to him matter-of-factly in conversation. Colin took the remains of that old fence to the dump for me today. Honey, or, oh, by the way, Colin mended the lawnmower. Then he mowed the lawn for us. Colin was indeed the helpful friend who lived down the road. It is easier now to see that he was more astute people-watcher than he seemed. He might have known that my job often took me abroad, and he probably had me profiled as a workaholic, as insensitive to my wife and her needs as I was trusting of her fidelity. But then again, we'd been married for some time and had 2 young children together. While I was away, my wife stayed at home taking care of the kids. I thought that we were happy, but in truth, I was too wrapped up in my job to even know. Life had gone on, and secretly day by day, it was written down. My wife was a meticulous diarist and spent about 20 minutes every day or evening logging the day's event. One afternoon, I walked into our bedroom and noticed that she had left her diary on the bed. This was unusual, but stranger still, it happened to be open. I went to go put it on the bedside drawer, but as I closed the pages, I caught sight of the word Colin. My immediate impulse was to slam the diary shut and try to forget that I had even seen his name before it had a chance to even sink in. Instead, I decided to start to read. The entries sketched back months, detailing their covert liaisons. Romantic, practical, but mostly sexual. The descriptions ranged from relatively tame, like kissing and cuddling today. It was lovely, to the kind of things that you'd get in the racier passages of a Mills and Boon novel. Nothing too graphic, but surprisingly comprehensive. My jaw ached with panic, and I felt the sudden flush of adrenaline. Of course, I had confronted her. I wanted to yell at her, but my anger was quickly changed by shock. I felt numb, confused, with tears in her eyes. She said that she hadn't been happy for many years, and that Colin provided an escape for her. At that moment, I didn't even know what to say. It was 4 or 5 hours before we could sit down and talk about it. We discussed the usual options, including divorce, but we decided to stay together for the sake of our children, make a fresh start. The next day, she told Colin that it was over. We didn't see him for a couple of weeks after that. He'd been driving his lorry to the continent, but Colin never did return. The news that he had gone missing on a ship presumed lost overboard was broken to us by his next-door neighbor. My wife's first reaction was stunned and disbelief, as was mine. Then she turned away and covered her mouth, trying to stifle any sobs that she had. Thoughts and emotions more tangled than ever. I tried to comfort her. Colin's death was confirmed by the positive identification of a body washed up on the beach. Some weeks later, my wife asked if we could drive to the crematorium so that she could lay some flowers and say her final farewells. It felt strange to me, but in the hope of her finding some kind of closure, I told myself that it was the right thing to do. Somehow, and completely irrational, I felt involved in his death, as if a personal timeline had been derailed on my behalf, and destiny rewritten to rescue a failed relationship. Slowly we tried to put it behind us, and his name was never mentioned again. A few years later, we had another child, and our marriage entered a new, happier phase. I vowed to be a more attentive husband and adjust my work-life balance, but I couldn't forget that affair, especially how close it had happened to my home. I should have trusted my instinct, because 12 years later, my wife had ran off with my best friend. Wow, how stupid can you get, dude? This happened on the 24th of December, 2013. I went out with my friends to a party. At about 9 p.m., my girlfriend, who's now my ex-girlfriend, called and said that she was at my house. I told her I was with my friends, and I will be coming back to the house tomorrow morning. She told me okay, that she'll stay inside and wait until then. I intended to stay at the party until dawn, but I decided to leave due to a terrible headache. I was exhausted. I felt I needed to rest. I left at about 11 p.m. When I got to my house, I was met with a shocker. My girlfriend was completely naked, and my dog was in between her legs, licking her down there. I stood there in shock, not knowing what to make of that ugly scene. "My God, what am I seeing?" I shouted at her. "It's not what you think," she said. "I'm naked because I needed to take some fresh air." To cut the story short, I had broken up with her, and then I sold the dog. She had been calling and sending text messages, begging me since then, though I didn't tell anybody about it because I don't want to tarnish her image. She's a very nice person, but deep inside my heart, I can no longer accept her. I can't put my thing in that hole once again. Never. But her words are really touching and disturbing, because she has sacrificed a lot in this relationship. She does love me deeply, that I know of, but this act, I really can't forgive or forget. On some Saturday morning in March of 2005, just a couple of hours after I caught my ex cheating on me, I got a visit from the police. The guy that she was with heard that I found out about them, and then called the police, concerned for her safety. She wasn't returning either of our calls. The police decided to check the house, my text message, to make sure that she wasn't in the house with me, and that I hadn't threatened her safety. I'm not a violent person, but that day, I had taken down all the paintings in our house and cut them to shreds in the garage. One of the cops stopped on the way out, turned to me and said, "I know what you're going through. I can see the kind of person that you are. You are legally within your right to do what you want in this house, so long as it doesn't interfere with your neighbor's well-being. But if you do tear this house apart, I can tell that you're the kind of person that's going to be feeling bad for it later on. She's not worth that." And then he just walked out. Funny thing is, his words had robbed me of all of my anger. I was pissed because I wanted to continue to be angry at her, but he was right about that. As emotional stability began to return, it hit me. I could still dismantle the house without damaging it. So I grabbed all of my tools, and in the subsequent 10 hours, I dismantled everything in the house that could be unscrewed. I spared nothing whatsoever. The kitchen appliances, all of our furniture in the study, in the 3 bedrooms, the dining room, den, and finally, the living room. I was very careful not to damage anything in that house. I neatly and gently stacked the parts and pieces I've dismantled, and then I put all the screws in a shoebox, and I took them with me. Now, if only I could see the look on her face when she decides to sit on that furniture once again. Because I say, screw that bitch. So I had walked in on her, giving a dude at a bar a handy on her birthday. When I confronted her later on about the possibility of our relationship not working out, she had thrown mugs at me, and finally tried hitting me with an IKEA end table. She threatened to beat herself up, and blame it on me if I broke up with her. Because in her own words, nobody would ever believe a loser like you. Whoever says men can't be abused in relationships are full of shit. This was 2 years ago. I'm still very uneasy about trusting women on dates, and I haven't been on a relationship that has lasted longer than 2 weeks since then. I keep coming back to that image of her giving him a handy, and I know that this is all mental, but deep down, I really can't get over this, especially since I really cared for this girl. So long story short, my wife had gotten a camera from me a few years back, and one day she decided that she was going to give back my camera. which she had taken on a vacation to go visit her parents with our 2-year-old child. I had noticed that the picture sequence had big gaps in the numberings. I decided to run an undelete program on my computer. Then I ran it on the card. I found 80 plus pictures of her naked with another guy in her mom's bedroom, some of which are pretty risque. Fuck my life, right? Now I have to confront her, and I'm going to divorce her.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.